it's not about like most men not saying, okay, so for the false claim thing, if most women were, or more women were making false accusations about men harassing them in the workplace or whatever, than the real accusations, then I would agree with you.
Why
But
would that makes no sense. That doesn't logically follow. Well, so here I'll explain. So the thing is that if we take the entire pool of men which are available in a pool who assault women, it's very, very, very tiny. But women will take this pool and say, because they're far more likely to do this, I then feel justified in staying away from them or guarding myself from them in some way. Nobody's even blaming you for that. But if that is the case, it would be the same logic to say, well, it's a very small amount of women who make these false claims about men. So since that is the case, why shouldn't men also guard themselves from those claims?
Okay, and another thing you're saying is basically you're saying men should like oppress women in the workplace to avoid these
That's such a huge leap.
Andrew, call out the straw man.
Because if we're being cautious of men, we're not saying like, oh, men aren't allowed anywhere near us or anything. We're going to create laws where men can't be in the same vicinity as us or anything like that. That's not what we're saying.
Well, okay. Well, wait. Hang on. It's all voluntary. So the idea here is that there's no oppression for voluntary exchanges. So if a man doesn't want to hire a woman because he doesn't want to take any risk, he's protecting himself the same way a woman is. If she crosses the street, they're both making preconceived notions based on a falsehood, which is that most men are not going to assault you if you're walking down the street. That's the truth. Most women are not going to make a false SA claim. But the logic is still the same, that because this happens, we need to protect ourselves from it. It's the same claim.
Do you understand that one has a major consequence?
They both have major consequences.
No, they don't.
Yeah, one creates a negative stereotype about men, which is unwarranted, and that creates a stigma, which is that is an unwarranted societal stigma against men, that they're violent, that they're thugs. If people, for instance, cross the street only because the men who were approaching were black, wouldn't you say that was a stigma?
Okay, so it's funny when people like to compare like black people, because black people have.
It's just the same logic. It's the same. It is. It is. It's a stigma. It's a stigma. You're creating a false stigma.
What if we change black with
No,
Hispanic?
no, it's still not. So
it literally is.
It literally is. Yeah. Yeah, I would like to hear the explanation. Yeah.
All right. So the reason why it's not. The reason why it's not is because men hold the most positions of power in our United States system, and men have more authority. So if black people had more authority than, say, white people, then you could make that distinction, but that's not the case.
Okay, well, hang on. Well, then I'll contend directly with this argument if it's just about power dynamics. Women hold more institutional power than men do. They hold institutional power over all forms of education. They have way more degrees. They own more housing. They have disproportionate positions as educators and as physicians over men. Men, on the other hand, are doing the blue-collar, laborious jobs that women don't want to do and are physically incapable of doing. So the thing is that already men are disproportionately downtrodden. But let us assume for just a minute that you're 100% correct and the power dynamics are still there. It still wouldn't matter. It would make my point and not yours, because if a group of white women only crossed the street because it was a group of black men, you would say that was creating a stigma, that was a negative stereotype. The same exact logic would apply if a woman just crossed the street for any group of men. It would still create a negative stigma. And if a woman makes a false SA claim against men, it creates a negative stigma. So if you think you're justified in protecting yourself from this, we think we're justified in protecting ourselves from that.
Okay, yeah. So once again, your effect, or the effect that you would have on women by not hiring them because you think they could make a false SA accusation, has a huge impact.
Yeah, it has a huge impact to create societal stigma against men too. Massive impact. In fact, to the point where in the dating market, men are terrified of even approaching women and requesting a date.
99% of all violent crimes are committed by men.
No, that's not true. First of all, that's categorically false. What you're looking at is prosecuted crimes. Yeah, when it comes, first of all, that's not even true. You're looking at FBI statistics, and let me go further though. Okay, there's independent studies. All they're looking at is prosecution rates. But when you ask people, when they do polling and when they do studies on DV, for instance, the FBI statistics far and away say that men commit the most amount of DV. Interestingly enough, though, bro, I'm not dismissing them. I'm giving you a refutation to them.
You can only gain like
Stop. Are you going to let me respond? You're not going to let me respond?
You go from 99 to 95.
You're not going to let me respond?
He's a white knight, yeah. He's a white knight, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I'll respond to this. Okay. What you're looking at is you're just looking at prosecutions. That's all the FBI can show you. They can just only show you what's being prosecuted, right? But it doesn't give you the background on the why. So this would be the same thing. I can make the same claim and say, okay, well, black people are disproportionately represented when it comes to violent crime too. But it doesn't show us the whys. And so we have to dive into the whys. Women actually do commit tons and tons of DV and violent crimes. It just goes mostly unreported by men. Now, we know this because we have multiple studies which show this, that men report that they have been SA'd and don't report it at way higher rates than women, that they've been physically assaulted at way higher rates than women and don't report it. And if a woman says, well, there's actually way more SA out there than is reported, you would immediately say, yeah, that's true. But for some reason, when men say it, oh, you're skeptical now.
Wait, Andrew, Andrew, you don't have to. We've already been over this.
Mass shooting is not reported.
John, hush. We've already been over this with John about like there's been sociological studies showing that because of societal conditioning, men just won't report.
Well, would you like me? If you'd like, I can pull them up for you, John.
Wait, can I ask a question real quick? Are you guys denying that like men commit these violent crimes?
No.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
Okay, so you agree that they are more likely to commit violent
No. So you took it one step too far. Do I dispute that men commit violent crime? No. Do I dispute that it's disproportionate to women? Yes, I dispute that.
So how can you dispute that when there's actual like biological reasons for men to commit these crimes?
Yeah, unless it comes to children. Let's look at we can just look at the abuse rates of children in single mother homes. Women are far more likely to abuse their children rather than single fathers. So when they have somebody who is weaker than them that they're in the caretaker position of, they're far more likely to abuse them. Way more likely than men are to abuse women. So it's disproportionate.
Because we all know that testosterone makes people more aggressive. So
yes, that's true, but it also makes men more logical. It also ups the amount of estrogen that men have. It makes them more emotionally temperate. So while testosterone can be linked to aggressiveness, that's true. It's also linked to emotional stability, which causes you to have less emotional outbursts.
You know what else is connected to? You know what's more connected to violence than testosterone or any genetics? Societal upbringing. And women are not taught to keep their hands to themselves.
Yeah, by the way, peaked estrogen can also lead to aggressive behavior, and women have peaked estrogen all the time.
Did you say that you'll have more emotional stability if the higher the testosterone?
I mean, generally speaking, if men are between, somewhere between 800 to 1400, they're fine. Yeah, that's fine. And men can go up to 2000 without seeing much in the way of negative effects. Their bodies are designed for that, and so most men have at least in their 20s high testosterone. No, they're not aggressive.
How come we always talk about like roid rage and like men having like?
Well, that's steroid usage. That's different. That's a whole no.
Steroids. That's a shrug induced. Like that's
they're like injecting testosterone.
Right. It's not natural.
It's not just testosterone as well. Test is a
form it's not
of or it can be used as a form, but there are way more popular and more effective types of things you could use than just test. Test is actually pretty limited and
it's very safe for men, especially, and women usually actually have too low of testosterone in modernity, and oftentimes have to use replacement as well. But the thing is that any chemical that you have too much of in your body can cause aggressiveness, including in women with estrogen. So no, just men having higher amounts of testosterone than women, it can make them much better when they're in a fight or flight response, at perhaps physically defending themselves, building muscle, things like this. But it doesn't mean that they are more aggressive. They can actually be more emotionally even keeled.
Linked to aggression, but okay.
Yes, but so is estrogen. Estrogen is also linked to aggression, and women have way more estrogen than men.
All right, let me look up.
This is a ridiculous argument.
Just real quick.
He's 100%
Hold on,
right.
guys. I'm one of the mods here, so if you guys don't mind, I'd like to welcome in Andrew. I really appreciate you for coming by. Just while we have you for a few, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the prompt. I think I would just love to hear what you'd have to say if you don't mind sharing.
Oh, well, thank you for having me, sir. I really appreciate it.